Who really want war? Who really want to spar with a beast? Raise hell, someone better call in a priest. Pardon my speech, but I'm hotter than the devil when I'm high up on a level that a god couldn't reach. I'm a damn.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the YouTube. I know it's been some days, but was waiting for the new console the new game to come out on the new consoles, and let's get into it, man. A lot has happened in the last few days, and we're going to talk about next gen Madden, my initial thoughts with the game. So what you're watching here is next gen. Look how, first off, before I tell you guys a sub and all that, look how fast I actually load into a game here, which is one of the cool things about the next gen consoles. You're going to see me search for a game, and this is Weekend League. Press search. I find an opponent within a couple seconds, and watch how fast me and my opponent actually get onto the field. It's pretty cool. It's pretty fast, and I guess this is kind of what you should expect with the next gen console. So that's cool. The loading screen time, way better. Before we get into the rest of the video, if you guys haven't already subbed to the channel, turn your notifications on. Where's the Noti gang at? I know it's been some days. We're back at it though. Let's lock in. I got videos coming throughout this weekend, and back on the daily grind. All right, so let's get it. Play call screen changed. So I'm gonna tell you guys what changed and what changes I noticed from my first roughly 10 games yesterday that I played. And we're starting off with the play call screen. You're gonna see him return this ball. We'll talk about the player speed in just a second. He returns the ball to 26, and now you see the play call screen at the bottom. And initially I was like, wasn't really a fan of it. Not sure why you have to change something that isn't broken. But with that being said, it kind of just grew on me throughout the 10 games. I'm already kind of used to it, how you sub people out. You can favorite plays, and everything else is pretty much standard. You can do your coaching adjustments still. You can do your subs. But yeah, that's what it is. Let me know what you guys think about the play calling, if you guys are a fan of it or if you're not a fan. Initially, I was like, I still stand by it. I don't know why, change something that isn't broken. But with that being said, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to make or break the game. So kind of already got used to it. That's what it is. Now, what I haven't got used to is the player speed on this field. I feel like they are way too sluggish. The way that player movement is, especially, you notice it with your user on defense, you're just moving in quicksand. And I don't see Madden as to being as good as it can be if you're playing at this slow of a pace. When it's this slow, look how slow this is, and look at how dumb Night Train Lane is. When it's this slow, that means, your user's slower, the pass rush is slower, the time that you have to make reads, you're gonna have more time because everything's slower developing. And I just feel like, just bad tackle there, just too slow. I feel like when it's this slow, it just takes away from the skill gap slightly. You want the game to be a little bit faster paced. Faster means, you have to make quicker decisions on both sides. Your user, I would like it to be a little bit better. I'm okay, and I'm not, gonna be the most sim, and I'm not gonna go super hardcore here, but I am okay with the user not being the fastest and being able to take away 3 routes at a time. Yeah, that would be nice, and that adds to the skill gap, but I understand, a nerfed user. Although I will say this, I feel like they've nerfed the user so much over the last couple years, I don't know if you need to nerf it anymore. So I don't know if that was their intent, if that's what they're trying to do with how player movement is on defense or offense, but I do think that there needs to be a speed increase with the players on the field. They're just too slow, in my opinion. All right, so that's what I have to say about player movement. I look at you can't really cut. There's no the moves are kind of bad. And again, it's just 10 games, so maybe there's some moves that you just have to figure out and that work best. I honestly am willing to look at that and willing to try different things, and maybe that's what it's going to take to really figure out the player movement. All right, so that's my take on player movement. Next thing I'm going to talk about is Gunslinger. I noticed it yesterday because I went from Josh Allen to another quarterback who you'll see on tomorrow's video. I went to another quarterback that didn't have Gunslinger, and I felt like you don't necessarily need Gunslinger. There was a user pick, by the way. You don't necessarily need Gunslinger. I've seen some throws that I was able to make without it, and I felt like I might not need Gunslinger. Like I was able to make this same exact throw with the other quarterback, basically. And if you're able to do that, meaning Gunslinger isn't necessary like it is on current gen, then that opens up a bunch of different quarterbacks that you can use on the field. You could use Mike Vick. You could use Cunningham. You could use A-Rod. You could use all these quarterbacks that didn't have Gunslinger before or set feet lead. They now become usable. And this is just my initial look at the game and my initial response to the game and how it plays. But again, taking into consideration, it was roughly only 10 games, but I 1000% noticed I was able to make some throws without Gunslinger that I couldn't in the past on current gen. So that's something to look at. All right. And I'll be testing that for sure. All right. So Gunslinger, I'm not sure if it's needed at this point, but you guys could be your own judge, and you guys could decide on whether you feel you need it or not. All right. And the next thing I wanted to talk about as far as the next gen Madden goes was the dropped interceptions still being an issue. I felt like I saw too many dropped interceptions, and right there some fumbles. So that's another thing that I feel wasn't around too much in Madden 21 on current gen. It started to come around a little bit late, but I saw some really hard hits yesterday throughout the 10 games, and I noticed there were some hit stick fumbles. And I think that with the hit power that some of these guys have, and people doing jukes and running recklessly right into Ronnie Lott, running into these hard hitting safeties with the quarterbacks on design quarterback run, whatever it may be. I did feel earlier in the year there wasn't any punishment for being reckless with your player movement on offense, and you weren't really rewarded for hit sticking and making these plays on the ball carrier. But yesterday I noticed that the ball was coming out, and you don't want it to pop out. You want ratings to matter at the end of the day. And if ratings start looking like they matter as far as hit power goes, that changes which safeties we look at. You're not going to see some of these safeties that are just strictly coverage. You're going to want more hit power. So that's one of the things that you could definitely take a look at and decide, do you want all hit power? This also adds value to guys like Night Train Lane, who are unique. They're a cornerback with, that strong safety hit power, that 90 plus hit power at the cornerback position, that he might become more valuable on the next gen. Opposed to someone like Deion Sanders, who can't really hit stick, right? So definitely something to look at. Again, back to the player movement real quick. I just don't feel like the game can be as great as it can be if the player movement stays the same. And I'm expecting them to make some adjustments with this, right? So I'm not going to go out my way to tweet at them and to go and make go and be in their Twitter DMs and all that. I think that with the community all kind of feeling the same way with play, look how slow that is with everyone feeling the same way about player movement. I think they have no choice but to change it, and I think it'll be for the better. All right, as far as abilities go on this, I seen like inside stuff work, as you guys can see right there. I seen so obviously like the slot apprentice and whatnot works. Escape artist was whatever, but abilities, they seem like they're kind of staying the same. And one thing I want to touch on as far as defense goes, deep zones are horrendous. They are awful. You can throw right over the top on deep thirds, deep quarters, deep halves. They are awful. They need tuning immediately. If you don't tune those, defense is going to be too hard. Man-to-man defense is awful as well. So defense is going to be a struggle for you going to next gen. If you are going from current to next, just take that into consideration as you're playing these games. I gave up more points in the first 10 games of Weekend League yesterday than I probably ever have, and it was a lot of easy touchdowns thrown over the top. Just things I'm not really used to on current gen were happening on next gen. So if you guys are struggling on defense, that's going to be because the zones most likely are just not as good, and man-to-man is not as good. So we'll see if they buff those things. And yeah, those are just my initial thoughts on next gen Madden. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are enjoying next gen Madden. I'm gonna play today on my stream. Come check it out. Thank you guys for the love and support, and I'll see you guys on tomorrow's video. Peace.